to the Tuesday, March 14th meeting of the Stow Select Board. Tonight we are fully remote due to the storm. It is set to continue until snowing until 2 in the morning. So we are all virtual. So because of that, this meeting is on Zoom. Stow TV is also recording it for YouTube and Facebook. Like I said, it's being recorded. This evening, I will open the floor. Oh, so because we're all virtual, every vote is going to be roll call vote. Mr. Costanzas is not joining us this evening. And I think that's all the housekeeping I need to go over.
Can I just remind folks, Megan,
yeah.
if people want to speak, to please raise your virtual hand. I can't see when people are waving on their screen, so please use the virtual raise hand option.
Awesome. And with that, I will open it up to public comment. Again, public comment is for things that are not currently on the agenda. I just ask that people are respectful and not calling out individuals and all that jazz. Any public comment? Raise your virtual hand. Going, gone. All right, any board member comments? I see a no from Ingeborg, a no from Ellen, and a no from Courtney. All right, we're moving right along to the town administrator's report. Denise?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple things tonight. As of March 9th, we are back up to 10 cases of COVID in town for an 11.22% positivity rate, which is now double the state and county averages. We'll certainly keep an eye on that, but COVID tests are still available in the Board of Health if anyone needs them. Nomination papers are available at the town clerk's office for all elected positions. Papers can be picked up through March 29th and must be returned by March 31st. If you are planning to pick up papers, please call the town clerk ahead of time and they will have them ready for you. Both the House and the Senate have passed supplemental budgets, which includes extensions to the pandemic-related authorizations that are set to expire on March 31st. However, there are several key differences in both versions of the bill, which needs to be ironed out and reconciled before the bill is submitted to the governor. Should it all be worked out, remote and hybrid meeting options would continue through March 31st, 2025. So what I've advised boards and committees to do is if they need to post a meeting or have a public hearing that is after March 31st, then they should put specific language on their agenda that would allow them to be fully remote should the legislation pass after it's posted. If the legislation does not pass, boards will need to meet based on the remote policy that we have in place, which means a quorum of the board, including whoever's going to be chair, must be in person. And then you could have other members participate remotely. But hopefully they'll have that ironed out by the 31st deadline. And lastly, I just wanted to congratulate the Nashoba boys hockey team who will be playing Situate in the Division III state championship finals at the Boston Garden this Sunday at 5:30. We wish them all well. That's it for me tonight.
Thank you. Go Wolves.
Quick question.
Yes.
Do we have a date yet for our executive session, or are you still working on that?
We do not. I was talking to Megan earlier. I'm gonna have to throw out a couple of other dates and see if we can get some to get 4 people available at the same time.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we may have to. We're going to throw out a whole list. We'll figure that out.
Just do it some Saturday morning.
I know. I will just. Okay, so next we have an appointment. I don't see him on, but we're reappointing, right?
Yes.
Joe Jacobs to the position of the Veteran Services Officer. I will say briefly that I have talked with Mr. Jacobs a couple of times on a couple of different things, and I think he does a fantastic job representing the needs of veterans in our town. And so I'm thrilled that he wants to do this again. Denise, did you want to say anything, or anybody else?
just that I think, Joe is fantastic. He's highly respected, and I think we're thrilled that he is asked to continue on in the role.
Yeah, I just reiterate, I got to meet him at the Veterans Day event last year, and he represents Hudson as well, so he's fully embracing the role, and I think he's just done a great job and a very nice person as well.
Lucky.
All right. So if there are no other comments, I will take a motion.
I move that the Select Board reappoint Joseph Jacobs as the town's Veteran Services Officer to fill a one-year term from April 1st, 2023 through March 31st, 2024.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Ms. Fresha,
Aye.
Ms. Hageman Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Sturgis,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, so that is unanimous. Thank you. All right, I see Ms. Leah Vivrito, he's here this evening, and I believe that you will be giving us our next agenda item, which is the Nashoba Regional High School building project update. So
Hi,
take it away.
everyone. Thanks for having me.
Hi.
It is time for our third board brief to our select board. So I'm here to deliver that to you. It's in your meeting materials. I would say that on the very back side of this pamphlet, there is a link to our website that is there for everyone to use. And that website has a comprehensive explanation of all the stages and details and all of the materials that anybody would want to see. This is, of course, just a brief explanation of what's new with the project. So we had a meeting last week with some things were shared with us by the architect that are not in this board brief. So just to be clear about that this is just a little bit behind, but you can certainly watch that meeting, or I could answer questions about that as well. But with regard to this brief, what you have here are some of the conceptual images that the architect has kind of under design consideration. I know that what's included in this board brief, it's even been tweaked a little bit since this was created. And so they're just trying to figure out how to best utilize the space. And it might even still continue to change as they're formalizing their design. The design is with all the cost estimates will be submitted to the school building committee on May 17th. And then on May 18th, they will be also presented to this joint meeting of the school building committee and the school committee. And so that's kind of a big milestone in the project. And we will be asked to vote, I think, on the May 31st meeting to forward the report that they're constructing to the MSBA. Then the MSBA is going to finalize their approval in late June. So that's that. And then most recently, we had a public forum that talked a lot about social media use and communication by public employees. So the Office of Campaign and Political Finance came out and talked with the public and with the school building committee and with the ballot initiative committee and with all the employees of the district to help everyone understand what is permissible communication with the public on this project and what would be considered non-permissible or in violation of campaign finance law. And so that was really informative. And the superintendent, who, by the way, couldn't be with us tonight, I think he's a little under the weather. But he learned as much as anyone did in that meeting, even though he's been through 2 of these construction projects himself. There's always more to learn in this way. And the office said that they are at our disposal whenever anything seems confusing or questionable. We have them as a resource. They gave us a contact there, and we can use them as a resource to make sure that nothing that the school building committee or the district administration does is in violation of campaign finance law. So I think that pretty much summarizes the brief, and I'm happy to take any questions from you guys.
I have one quick question. I see that there are facilities tours that have been scheduled. And so I'm hoping that the members of the board can take a look at those dates and see if there are any dates that I'm assuming it's to go through Nashoba.
Yes, thank you, Megan,
Great.
for reminding me. So
I was
there
going to say,
are,
any voting on this is going to be super important if
Yeah.
you see the state of the school at the moment.
yeah, so anybody who has kids who are in the high school or kids who have gone through the high school, you're probably acutely aware of the condition of this building. But as our chairperson Joe Gleason has put it, even those of us who think we know this building don't know the extent to which this building is kind of being held together by a thread in some places. So these tours have been set up so that residents can sign up to be a participant and then be brought through not just the main portions of the building, but into the electrical rooms and down in to see where the well is and how the cafeteria struggles to meet the demands of the population. And so it will show us kind of all the behind the scenes parts of the building so that we can really come to a greater understanding of the deficiencies. And whereas the building is serving our kids right now as best as it can, it really is not a long-term solution at all right now, unfortunately.
Okay, so how can people sign up? Is it they go to that website? Like, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so on the school building website, I will actually make sure, I can do this tonight. I can, if it's not already there, I can make sure that there's a banner at the top.
Okay.
It will give people a place. It's a Google form that you
Okay.
need to click. It is on the website, but I'm just going to make sure that it's on the front page on a banner at the top so that you just click on the Google form, you choose the time that you want. I'm pretty sure all of the dates are open at this point in time. So the 2 April dates will help you visit before these important milestones in May and June, but also the vote that the towns will be asked to conduct to approve funding, total project construction funding, will happen sometime in late September, maybe early October. We're not completely sure yet. It will depend upon the time limits that are established by various votes that are taken by the school committee over the summer, but it'll be in the fall. So you could go on to the September tour to get a look at it closer to that vote.
All right, thank you. Ellen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so just since we were just talking about that, so to clarify, you have to sign up for a tour. You can't just show up. Is that, it's not clear on the handout that you need to sign up, but you're saying you need to sign up, right, Leah? Oh, did Leah just freeze?
Okay.
Oh, she may have. So since she's frozen, my assumption would be, given that conversation, that you should sign up only so that they know how many people are going to show up. But I don't know. I don't know if they're going to turn people away. I would assume it's just for planning purposes.
Right. And I had another question, but if she's frozen, I guess I can't really answer. So, I mean, I guess I was just gonna say that I felt like there's way too much time spent on the social media stuff, which is really important for the committee, but not for the general public. And I would have liked to see a whole lot more information about the building design, because we're spending a lot of money. We should know more about the building than we should about how to worry about violating public media. So anyway, but I'll talk.
Okay.
I have talked to Leah about it, and I will talk to her.
Okay. Yep. I'm not gonna try and speak for Leah. If anybody else from the board has any additional questions that maybe you want to just ask out loud, and then we can. Oh, there she is.
She's coming back.
Maybe. Oh wait, we can, yeah. Hi.
Hi,
There
I'm
you
so sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
I'm not sure what happened, but I'm back on my phone.
All right. It's a windy night. Ellen had a quick question about the Google form, so I'm gonna let her ask that.
Yeah, so I had two questions. One was just to confirm that we do need to sign up in advance for the tours, not just show up.
Correct.
Oh, there you are. Okay. So I guess it's sort of a comment, and I mean, we don't have enough time to talk about it now, but both the the public meeting about the, you know, the campaign finance stuff and the brochure spent, in my opinion, too much time on that for the general public, which it's really not relevant to. It's relevant to the committee. And I would have liked this update to have shown more about the building design. This is little tiny pictures with very little information about it. We're spending a gazillion dollars. I want to hear more about why you're doing a different format. I know it's been in some of the publications, but I feel like we need to be hearing more. And I'm wondering when are we going to hear about the updated budget of what the actual cost?
So, Ellen, just to be clear, you're wanting to know a little bit more about the design changes?
Well, in this, you know, there's the pictures on the left of the conceptual design, but there's very little discussion about it. And you took a whole column to talk about the campaign finance stuff. And I feel like that's an imbalance for what the public needs to hear. So.
Got it. Yeah, I think that one thing that we want to be really clear about the campaign finance stuff is that the school committee and the district administration can actually play a very kind of limited role in campaigning for the project and kind of using any kind of district resources to campaign in one direction or the other.
Right.
And so I guess what I should have said was, and you probably know this from the center school project, but one thing that the public really needs to be aware of is that the ballot initiative committee is going to need to be made up of people other than those of us who are deeply involved in this. And so anybody who could volunteer their time, actually, Lainey Sanfilippo is going to be running the ballot initiative committee. So she can actually be a really great point person. And we haven't really gotten that online yet, but we will soon. So that campaign finance stuff, although it is kind of technical and maybe very irrelevant to the vast majority of people, those of us or those of you out there who get involved with it have to pay super close attention to it because we could get in a lot of trouble if we come into any kind of violation or just trip up by accident. So Elaine will kind of escort us through that process, and she's becoming an expert on it. So I'm so grateful to her and to a couple of other residents who have stepped up to join her in that. Then the conceptual design stuff, what you have on the brief right now is all I knew up into Thursday night. So I think it was Thursday night. Yes, Thursday night we had a meeting and they actually shared some changes in the design that I hadn't been aware of. And I asked about it and they said, yeah, this is like an evolution. These changes were made yesterday. So it is definitely an iterative process where they're making changes that make sense to protect the wetlands, to make sure that the parking is appropriate, that there's not going to be a line of traffic out onto 117, especially with that rotary project that's going to hopefully be happening simultaneously. So I think maybe what we could do in the next board brief is focus much more on the design elements, because that is probably what the public wants to know most about. And they will know more about, like the designers will have more concrete information to share, hopefully next month, like April. The vote, or rather the costs that are associated with that finalized design will not come until May 17th. Which is my favorite birthday present. That is my birthday. So I will be looking forward to hearing that from the designers. And I know that everybody else will be too. On Thursday night too, they shared a little bit about kind of effective reimbursement rates and some of the square footage that is potentially not reimbursable for various reasons. So we can talk a little bit about cost in the next board brief, but not with a lot of specificity.
Thank you, Leah.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions for Ms. Viverito? No? Denise? No? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. And we will let you get on with your rest of your snow day.
Right. Thanks, Megan.
Thanks, Leah. Take care. Bye. All right. And with that, I'm going to kick it back to Denise, who is giving us a presentation on the FY 2024 financial state of the town pursuant to Article 4, Section 10 of the General Bylaws. And with that, Denise, I'm hoping you'll share your screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Can you all see my screen? No. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Bear bear with me. Oh my goodness, sorry. I'm using my home computer and it's not liking the settings to share the screen, but one moment. Let's try that again. Okay.
Yay.
Okay. So, hello, everybody. This is the fiscal 24 financial state of the town that I've put together. I will go through where we are currently and talk a little bit about next fiscal year and what you can all expect. We're gonna start with our certified free cash. So free cash for June 30th was $1,876,404. As you can see, that has decreased over the last few years. And we'll talk about in the next few slides why. But specifically, it's because we started making annual investments into some of our other reserve accounts that are more stable than free cash, which can fluctuate due to a number of different factors. Revenues, money we're taking in, revenue that we estimate as part of the budget process, where we end up spending with the fiscal year. So that tends to fluctuate anyways. But taking money and appropriating it out into some of our reserve accounts will also affect the balance because it doesn't fall to free cash. We've actually appropriated it out. The goal is free cash to be 5% or above the annual budget. And for fiscal 23, we're at 5.97%. Our stabilization account. So as you can see, the stabilization account has had the opposite. We have grown over the last several years. In fiscal 20, you'll recall a large amount of money was utilized for the Lower Village project. And we are now building that back, and we have exceeded the levels that we were at for fiscal 19. So as of December 31st, including interest, we're at $950,339 in our stabilization account, which is excellent for a community our size. Also last year, we created the capital stabilization account to start putting funding aside specifically for capital related projects or to pay debt service associated with capital. We've only made one appropriation into it last year at $75,000. So what does that all mean? Our free cash and our stabilization accounts combined represent the available funds that the town has. As of fiscal 23, we were just under 3 million at 2.9 million, which makes up 9.24% of our budget. Ideally, we'd like to be between 10 and 15% for rating agencies. However, in an initial call I had last week with the rating agencies, they were very impressed with all of our levels and said that we are absolutely doing the right thing and investing in our funds and our reserves appropriately. But it's still nice to see that we're at a healthy almost 10% of our budget. The OPEB trust, something else that we've added and appropriated into over the last several years. So as you can see, it has grown. We now put in 235,000, I think it is, a year into our OPEB trust. We just had a new actuarial that came in as of January that increased our liability. We were at 7.5 million. We're now at 9.2 million as our liability. So we are 11% funded in that account, which again, considering a lot of the other municipalities or school districts, we are well ahead of the curve and that we are making actual appropriations and we have a committed dollar amount that we will invest. So again, it's a nice steady increase. And I think that for the foreseeable future, we should be able to stay with those appropriations without any issues.
Denise, can I just interrupt and just ask you, for people who don't know what OPEB is?
I will talk about that in a
Oh,
second.
haha, there you go. Of course you did.
So for those who don't know, what is OPEB? So what OPEB is during the year of active service. So every year that someone's employed, an accounting liability is created that's based on the future benefits that we would provide. So in our case, it's health insurance and life insurance. So we start accruing a liability to pay for those benefits when and if an employee retires through us. So it is considered earned, even though it's a liability, but because the liabilities increase so dramatically, back about 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit more, we were told we needed to start accounting for that liability and putting funding aside, which is what we do on an annual basis. So we put money aside so that in 2030, 2035, we can start utilizing the trust fund to pay the portion of health insurance and life insurance for what would then be retirees. Every 2 years, we get a full actuarial value from Odyssey Advisors. And as I said, they just recalculated us. Sometimes that the liability goes up, which in our case it did. Sometimes it goes down. Liability is based on a number of different things in the actuarial. They calculate life expectancy, the cost of our health insurance, the number of employees, the number of retirees, and then they have to make a number of assumptions. So based on all of that, they have calculated our future liability of $9.2 million. Snow and ice. So as of yesterday, we were at 193,000 spent out of the 200,000 appropriated for snow and ice. We will clearly exceed that now. And at our next meeting, I will be asking the board to authorize overspending of the account because, well, the last 24 hours. But overall, we've been, we try and budget accordingly. Obviously, you can never tell what it's going to be like, but we buy materials early in the season and only buy them later on if we really need to. We don't like to stockpile because we quite frankly don't have the funds to do so. If it was a milder winter and we didn't have ice events or snow events, we could buy some materials so that we had it on hand, which we tried to do a few weeks ago, and now we're using up all of those products. But it is what it is. This is one of the only accounts we can legally overspend with the vote of the board, and then we will either transfer in or it can fall to the tax recap, however we need to handle it. I think we'll be fine with covering it with a departmental transfer later on this fiscal year. So last fiscal year, town meeting adopted a budget of $31,408,624. And that breaks down, as you can see, 66% for education, then general government at 10%, public safety at 9%, our debt account at 7%, public works at 4%, and other, which is really insurance, liability insurance, and a few other ancillary accounts as other. And then how do our revenues break down? Not a surprise to anybody. Almost all of our revenue comes in through the tax levy. So 89% of our revenue comes from taxes. And then we have local receipts, which are made up of excise taxes considered local receipts, any permits, licenses, those types of things, state aid and other, which again is just sort of if we happen to get any additional funds through the state, or if there are other revenue sources we weren't anticipating, comes in as other. Our state aid history, you can see how it's fluctuated. We took a hit in 2021 after COVID started. We're bouncing back. However, the 2% increase really is minimal. Our total state aid is $527,000. This year, the governor seems to be focusing more on education state aid and not quite on municipal aid yet. We're hopeful that in the future, we can see those levels start to increase once again at healthier rates. Fiscal 23, the average single family tax bill in Stow is $11,617. The average single family value was $640,000. We have 2,116 parcels. Tax rate $18.13. Our estimated new growth that we're estimating right now is 250,000. For fiscal 23, it ended up at 351,000. That's another number that's a wild card. It really depends on permits, any new parcels, developments, when they're going to come online, when they go through their permitting process. Normally we come in above what we estimate. That's a conservative approach. And I would expect the same for fiscal 24. There's a number of things brewing for development purposes. It's just a matter of when they pull their permits and start construction. There's a snapshot of our tax rate history. So you can see that our tax rate decreased this year, almost 8%. The tax rate at $18.13 is the lowest it's been since 2012. And that makes up for the increase in values, which we'll talk about in a moment. So here is a snapshot from the DOR. You can see how the combined value of Stow in 2014 was 879 million, and we're now $1.3 billion in value. Obviously, from 2022 to 2023, the value increased $130 million just in 1 year. Everyone knows their values have skyrocketed. We only added 8 single-family parcels to our tax rolls. And the average single-family value went from 556,000 to 640,000. You can see that we're not alone. Metro West is clearly the most expensive place to live as far as taxes and single-family value. You can see here, the dark red are the highest values. And tax bills are averaging over 15,000 a year, and we are right on the edge of that. And I will show you where we compare to our neighbors. So in comparison to sort of the surrounding towns, you can see where we fall. Boxborough, Bolton, Harvard, and Acton are all higher than us as far as average single-family tax. We are currently ranked at 34 out of the 351 communities for the highest single-family tax bill. And I say estimated because 6 communities have not set a fiscal 23 tax rate. So the state actually can't certify that, but we are 34th in the list. Statewide average, $7,059 for tax. So what does that mean? So here's how we break down our cost of service. So again, the average single family home is $640,760 in Stow, with an average total tax bill of $11,618. This is how that tax bill breaks down. If you're paying $11,618, $7,085 of that tax is going to the education budgets. $737 towards general government, $965 for public safety, and so on. Additionally, you can see that we have 12 debt exclusions that are added to the tax rate. So as projects have come up, they've gone to the ballot, they have been approved, and they are added on to the tax rate. The majority of these at the time were taken out for 20, some for 30 years. So they will not be falling off the tax rate anytime soon. But just to keep in perspective that from here down, from this 2514, these are all things that have been voted on by the taxpayers to make improvements throughout the community.
Sorry, can I ask you a quick question on that?
Oh.
That other column, the second column after average taxes, is that what the balance of those are, or is that what the original total was? Like for well, I'm looking particularly at the debt exclusion. So are those listing what's left on the, like on elementary school number 2 is 437,000 left?
No, that's just the cumulative value. It's not,
Okay.
it's not the debt service schedule.
Okay, thank you.
I can certainly provide that if you'd like that at another time.
Yep.
So to break it down further, the cost of service for Nashoba Regional Schools and Minuteman Voc combined, $7,678 of that $11,600 tax bill, or 66%, which means 66 cents of every tax dollar paid to the town of Stow goes right to education for education or related costs. That includes the debt exclusion on the schools and the general fund budgets that are submitted. So 66 cents of every tax dollar goes right to educational purposes. And the last fiscal year, we've been lucky enough to have ARPA funds, which we've talked about at select board meetings. We received $2,162,292 in federal funds. And this is a snapshot of how it has been allocated. Obviously, we've gone into more depth with the specific categories, but this is just an overall view of where those fundings have gone. And we still have 394,000 to be allocated. That's different from what has to be spent. This is what can still be allocated by December 31st, 2024. And then the entire 2.1 million has to be spent by the end of 2026. Let's talk about fiscal 24. So currently the departmental requested budgets have come in at just over $33 million. That is up 1.65 million from the fiscal 23 budget and represents a 5.26% increase. This includes estimates for police and fire unions. Both of those are currently in negotiations, so we've included some estimates. And the increases from Minuteman and Nashoba combined are just under $1 million worth of the increase. They come in at $952,961 currently. So this is how that breaks down. And if you'll remember from the previous slide, when it talked about spending for fiscal 23, the budget's the exact same. All the percentages fall in line the exact same way as they did for fiscal 23. The capital requests that have come in, a little over 3 million. And I say approximately because after every capital planning meeting, the numbers have changed based on the discussions that I've had. So this is sort of a total of where they stand today. I do still expect this to change after capital continues to meet with departments, which they will do again this Thursday. And then I will utilize that information to make my final recommendation for the budget on what we can comfortably afford within our fiscal 24 budget. Our health insurance for fiscal 24 has a 13.75% increase. We are lucky that we don't have a ton of employees on health insurance. However, this does represent a large increase and one of the largest numbers in our budget. In the general fund side is health insurance. We talk about education a bit. So Minuteman High School, their overall enrollment is projected to be 734 students for 2023, with 698 coming from member towns and 36 coming from non-member towns. And that is because they are shifting to in-district only. The out-of-district enrollment is decreasing, which means the tuition and the capital coming from out-of-district communities is also decreasing. This does, it does represent a significant increase in the assessments to the member towns because we don't have that offsetting feature anymore. So they have been having some conversations about potentially opening up to other communities. We'll see how that plays out. If we add additional communities back into the district, it will defray the costs to the current member towns, but it would also lessen the number of students that could attend from each town. So there will be some conversation around that in the upcoming months. So where do we stand for our assessment from fiscal 23 to 24? They are projecting 65 students for fiscal 24 from Stow, or 8 additional students to their enrollment. And this is how the contribution breaks down from Minuteman, which I will show actually in the next slide. So here's the minimum required contribution from Stow. And then we have our transportation and our operating assessment, and then the debt and capital for 2 million. And then the building project debt service, which we covered in the earliest slide, is the Minuteman debt service, brings our total assessment for fiscal 24 to 2,574,000, or 20% increase, a total of 429,000. So one thing to note about Minuteman, they are handling the estimated state aid numbers differently than Nashoba. Minuteman is not adjusting their budget to incorporate what could potentially be $1 million more in state aid that they are receiving. They don't want to chance the House One numbers to be changed. So what they would do is, so what we need to do is build this amount in our budget, However, we may be billed less than that once the final state budget is set and they know a final number for state aid. So should that happen, any additional funding would then fall into free cash that we've budgeted and we would not utilize for fiscal 24. Now Nashoba. So here's the enrollments for Nashoba as of October 1st. Stow had 1,063 students. You can see how it breaks down. We have 287 in the high school, 266 in the middle school, 490 in center school, and then a handful of other kids in other schools in the district. I was asked if I could provide a breakdown of just school-age children in general in Stow and where they go. 1,027 is in the regional schools, which I know it's a little bit different from the previous number, but they're different years. It's calculated based on 65 in the VOC or regional technical schools. We have 14 students going to charter schools, 18 going to out-of-district public schools, 14 students are homeschooled, and 61 are going to private or parochial school. So we have a total of 1,199 school-age children in Stow, and this is the breakdown of where they are attending. So with the Nashoba budget, they base their budget on the foundation enrollment and a 5-year rolling average. So here we are, October 1, 2022, 1,083 students. The enrollment for Stow it decreased slightly. We were at 33. Sorry, wait a minute. Oops, I can't see my video. I don't know what I had there. I guess we went up slightly. I thought we went down. My apologies. Bolton is down, and you can see that Lancaster has steadily increased over the last several years with their numbers in the district. And these numbers are what breaks down to calculate the minimum contribution and our assessment. So here's how the minimum local contribution breaks down for the Nashoba budget. They have a total minimum contribution of 29 million, broken down to Stow being at $10,855,691. And that further breaks down to, here's the total proposed budget. Then we have the high school debt and revenue that they are generating locally, which includes state aid, state grants. So then this is the amount that needs to be assessed, 51,289,000. Subtract off the minimum local contribution, and then this is the remainder that needs to be assessed through our budget process, which means our fiscal 22 assessment is $19,059,502, or an increase of 2.82%, or $523,540. As I mentioned, Minuteman is not adjusting their budget based on the House 1 state aid numbers. Nashoba has adjusted their budget based on the House 1 state aid numbers. So the state aid was, as I mentioned earlier, was favorable for the schools this year. They saw an increase in state aid, anticipated state aid, so they adjusted their budget accordingly, which lowered the increases across the board for the 3 communities. So looking ahead to fiscal 24, we have Minuteman and Nashoba as a combined almost $1 million increase to our budget. The cost to update facilities and equipment is increasing, and delays and supply chain issues are still causing a problem. We are struggling with purchasing equipment. We still don't have the infamous bucket truck. Any vehicles that we budgeted for last year, we have not received, and those that we were not able to even purchase, we're having a hard time even finding inventory available for municipalities. So we will continue to see those issues. As I mentioned, health insurance is increasing by over 13%. While ARPA funds will not be available to cover capital requests this year, we do still have availability, and it's continuing to help close out a lot of our projects due to escalating costs. So that is it's not really a happy or a sad, but I figured that was a budget neutral. The good news is our tax collection rate does remain high. And the final state aid school figure should have a positive impact on the Minuteman assessment. So once we get adjusted numbers, we would have additional funds that we can count on as being part of our free cash that's certified next year. So the recommendations that I will be making as part of the budget process will be to continue to fund the OPEB trust with an annual appropriation of $235,000 from free cash. I would like to continue making annual appropriations into our stabilization account. The recommendation for fiscal 24 is $200,000. I would like to continue to make the annual appropriation to the capital stabilization account. And for this year, again, I'm recommending $75,000 from free cash. And one of the other items I've been working on this year is to continue to make departments more efficient. Our ZBA administrative assistant is retiring. We will be rolling the ZBA services under the planning department to make that a little more efficient, have full-time staff available. Continue with the consolidation of the cemetery department into the highway department. We've successfully moved the cemetery up into the highway department, and the majority of their budget has now been absorbed by highway. And we are moving the facilities related expenses out of the departmental budgets and into the main facilities budget. All of the buildings have been budgeting separately for electric, heating, trash removal. It just doesn't make sense. It's better to have that in one location, one department focusing on those matters and sort of keeping an eye on where we stand with our utilities. Another recommendation this year will be to invest in our fire department's hybrid call model by supporting the request to add 2 full-time firefighters. The hybrid model that we have is sustainable, but we do need to make incremental investments in the staffing levels and then facilitate engagement of our call members. We've talked about this the last few years. To have a fire department that is as responsive as ours is, and provide the kind of services, mostly on an EMS level, because those are the majority of our calls, at the amount of budget that we are allocating is remarkable. So many other towns are struggling with their fire departments, especially those with the call departments, because they're not getting the response. And we far exceed that. But it's getting more and more difficult when we have multiple medical calls at the same time. We do have 2 ambulances. So this would allow us to have a full-time firefighter on every shift of the week. Right now, we don't have full-timers on overnight. It is just our per diem. So this would allow us to have a full-time person, at least one on every shift, just to improve that availability. Additionally, given the requirements now of the State Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission, the Post Commission, they have set expectations and requirements for reserves and special officers to be fully trained and certified, which we just can't keep up with. It's a very large expense for us to keep them fully trained as a full-time officer. So therefore, I'm supporting the recommendation of the chief to add 1 full-time patrol officer to the police department. We currently fill a number of shifts a week with either overtime or special officers, and this will alleviate that and allow us to properly schedule for police officers. Plus, with the eventual addition of Plantation 2, the Athens Lane development, and Stow Acres, we do see that the public safety numbers are expected to increase anyways to provide the level of service that residents here are used to. And now that we have a procurement and grants administrator, we plan to complete procurements of regular services to ensure the best cost at the highest quality. We have never undertaken full HVAC, plumbing, electrical contracts for regular service. They usually just call whoever and have them come in and do a job. This would put folks under contract, allow us to get the best price, and have guarantees as far as who's doing the service and what quality we expect. Additionally, dumpster and recycling. As I mentioned previously, each department negotiates their own trash. They have their own trash vendor. They deal with their own recycling. We will be consolidating that, putting everyone under one contract, allow us to negotiate for better prices across the board. And we will continue to work with our state and federal legislators on earmarked funds for Stow. Just as a recap of what we received in the last year. We received the 300,000 from the state ARPA funds to install 6 fire cisterns. The procurement for that has finally begun. It will not be 6 due to the rise in costs, but the fire department has narrowed down their top priority and we will start installing those in the near future. The 1,135,000 MVP grant for the Stow Acres project. We have received authorization for release of the first 960,000, which completes the purchase of Stow Acres. We need to be reimbursed for that. We are just waiting on those funds to be released. Then the remainder of those funds will help us take care of the master plan of Stow Acres. The $1 million grant for the Lake Boone Dam, we are waiting on the release of those funds, and we anticipate applying for that grant for the next year as well, and hopes to receive an additional grant for an additional portion of that project. The $750,000 federal earmark for Track Road. We've had some hiccups with MassDOT. They were not fully supportive of the project, or the design, I should say, of the project. They have now approved the design process that we're using, and we are waiting on release of those funds. So all of these projects will carry us well into 2024 as well. In addition, we will continue to seek out and apply for grants in all municipal areas. There are a number of infrastructure grants coming down, a number of sustainability grants that we are interested in hopes of receiving 1 or more grants for upcoming projects. And that is my presentation for you this evening, and I will take questions for anyone who has them.
All right, anyone from the board who has questions, you can just unmute yourself from the select board. Alan?
I think I guess my primary question is, I know that not all of our employees are unionized, so I'm wondering what the options are for health insurance. Is there, I mean, basically every nonprofit I know has had to change what they offer just because of that increase. And I'm wondering it's a painful thing to ask, but I'm just wondering how that's fitting into your discussions.
So it's not fitting in now, it's fitting in for the summer. We were waiting the GIC is doing a full rebid of their products, which we are not through the GIC. We are through the Nashoba Minuteman Consortium. But we thought it would be prudent to wait for the GIC to have a new book of products for us to then do a full bid process. The other alternatives to what we currently have would be the Maya Trust, which handles a number of communities, or the GIC. We will do that over the summer and compare rates. In order to leave our current plan, if we wanted to, and join another, the deadline would be sometime this fall. So we plan to do that and weigh our options, and then it would take effect for fiscal 25 if we were to make a change.
Okay, thank you. And one really quick question, is there a target? You had mentioned the target for, I can't remember which one it was now. Is for some around the stabilization funds. Yep. And you talked about a 5% goal for one of the funds, which I didn't write down, but is there a goal for stabilization in the same way that you're sort of looking to target X amount of our total budget or whatever?
Well, so the available funds combined, we certainly could put a policy together on what our target is for stabilization. But I think the available funds between free cash and stabilization, the 2 stabilization accounts, ideally would be 10 to 15%.
Okay, so it's just that combined. Okay.
Yeah, and for all 3, we're just under that. So, but we certainly could put a policy on where we'd like to see our stabilization funds in general.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that's sort of norm, best practice kind of thing. So thank you. That's all.
You're welcome.
Ingeborg.
Hi, I thought that was very helpful to me, and I really appreciate it. One thing I just wondered is, I know you're going to probably post this on our website. Is there an opportunity perhaps later to ask more specific questions about this? I know this was just sort of a state of the town kind of thing, but just as an educational tool for me or for the public.
Yes, of course. Yes, so this will be posted under the town administrator page of our website. The last 2 years are on there. And at any time, board member, anyone from the public is welcome to reach out and ask questions.
All right, any other questions? Anybody raising your hand? Ms. Fresha.
I just want to reiterate what Ingeborg said, having this report, I just think it's a wonderful educational tool, both for us and for anybody who's interested in the town finances, and you make it much easier to understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No, I would just want to say thank you again, Denise. I echo my colleagues. This is, you've made a state of the fiscal state of the town enjoyable and digestible. And so I appreciate that. All right. Moving along, we are going to be discussing with our EDIC some goals. And so we have, it looks like we've got most of the members from the EDIC here. So Tom, you're going to be you can unmute yourself. I'm going to ask everybody else just to raise hands, just so we don't have a million people muting and unmuting themselves, just so we can keep this going. For the board, what I would love, and I think what the EDIC would love to see from this meeting, is a concrete list of things that they can take to start working on. I feel like we got and working with the planning board, we got a charge together. And I think right now the goal setting, taking feedback from the EDIC and from the planning board is great. And so I'd love to come up with, 3 to 5 kind of goals that we can give to them to take on. Does anybody have any questions about that? No. All right, so what we have from the EDIC were 3 items, and then we had some from the planning board. And so the first item from the EDIC was coordination, creation, and evaluation of a needs survey. The second was advocating and educating on the results of the water study for the Lower Village. That is the eventual water study for Lower Village that I'm not sure of the actual time frame on right now. I do know that some things are moving on it. And then also to create a Stow Business Forum meeting for the purpose of bringing together Stow business owners to get real-time feedback on issues that they may face or topics of concern, or kind of just trying to figure out where they can go with it, which I think I have heard a lot back and forth over the last couple of months. Now, the planning board, sort of in the same vein, was requesting that the EDIC provide a description of the biggest challenges town bylaws, policies, or conditions posed for local business owners and commercial property owners. That's townwide, not only in Lower Village. You don't want to, and I think that, that seems to be hand in hand with what the EDIC would like to do with that forum. Research and describe how demand for different business types is anticipated to change over time, which seems like a long-range goal. Maintain a business inventory coupled with the tenants or property owners' stated challenges or concerns, which again feels like something that could be gained from a forum. Gather information about what it takes to attract business to town. Research what comparable towns can do and are doing to address their local business climate. This could include outreach to local experts, such as the 495 Metro West Partnership or the Assabet Valley Chamber of Commerce. Also with that, investigate joining a Chamber of Commerce. And creation of a doing business guide to assist prospective businesses in the town's permitting process, which including items that might be needed from building department, the town clerk, board of health, conservation commission, or planning. And so with that, it does sound, I wanted to see if the select board had anything else they wanted to throw into the mix as far as goals. And then I was hoping we could sort of again, come up with that concrete list that feels like we've heard everything from the EDIC as far as the direction they want to move in. I don't know what that was. All right, so select board. Any questions? Any suggestions? Anything you feel like needs to be a goal?
Do you want us to comment on the list that you just sort of went through, or just or other things that weren't on the list?
I think other things that weren't on the list is what I'd like to hear first, and then we can figure out kind of what else we want to do. But is there anything that you feel that anybody feels like? Yes. I have no idea who that is.
My only, and it's sort of in there, but it's, I think, representing business sort of considerations, particularly on committees like the Green Committee. It just want to make sure that we're balancing the needs. I mean, just the same way, those ideas have to be balanced against the cost to the taxpayer or whatever. But I think also for the businesses, like what's going to help them encourage businesses to come in. If we had, say, like charging stations is just an easy example, something like that. So I guess I don't know, it's sort of in there, but it's not specific to, and I'm not sure what the right word is. That liaison gets to be a dangerous interpretation. So this representing the business community.
Okay. Ingeborg.
We discussed this several months ago and we came up with a short list, which I don't have in front of me. But, and I apologize, I didn't pull them out. But I think that this list is very thorough and it's broad enough that it can expand into the kinds of details that Ellen raised, for example, because I think those are, at least the charging station idea is perfect. That gets into what businesses need in the future. I personally don't think we need to add any more. I think the committee should be able to take this general and apply it to more more specificity to their mission, I would say. I just wish I had the old stuff that we all pulled together in one of the old minutes, like months and months ago. So I hope we can finally get this resolved a little bit, but move this on and let them go. But so that's my input.
Okay. I do think that a lot of what I saw from the planning board memo and a lot of what I saw from the from what the EDIC is requesting, I cannot remember something that was so big that we talked about that is not on these lists. So I think what I would like to do is from these lists, and then Tom, actually, if you want to chime in, if you feel like I'm going off the rails as far as what you all are hoping for, what I'd like to do is give you kind of 2 short-term goals, 3 short-term goals, and then kind of a couple of the planning board ones seem to be a little bit, and even the water study one seems to be a little bit longer term, so that you have sort of concrete things to be working on in the short term and then longer term. And if that sounds like something that is feasible.
I think when we had discussion amongst the members on the committee that we felt having, 3 fairly well-defined goals would, over a year's, for over a year's time would keep us pretty busy. We all 4 of us right now we're working full time. I'm doing 40 to 60 hours a week, and I know there are a couple other members who, similar demands on their time. So I don't want to get us into a situation where we've got 5 goals and, we can't, we're not going to make them. Again, I'd like them to be reasonably well defined and allow us to focus our time. Some of the longer term stuff, sure, I get it. But I think some of this can, some of those can also be impactful.
Okay. Sorry, we're dealing with Okay. Mary, did you have something you wanted to say? Yeah, you're gonna, oh, sorry. I'm gonna ask you to unmute. Yep.
I think that when we met as a group and we have continued to meet, the goal was to have very specific.
Mary, I'm sorry, you have two sounds
You-
going.
Yeah, and I
You're
don't know
like
what that's
echoing.
from. Hold on.
You're signed on twice, so one of them is,
Nope, that's muting me. Do I still have two? Yeah. Where, I don't know where that's coming from. Yeah. Okay, I can't fix that, so I'll just hold my comment because I know it's hard for people to hear. Go ahead, Megan, just ignore me.
Thanks, Mary. If you, well, it's fine. I'm going to mute you again, but if you think of something you want to say, you can put it in the chat, okay? Okay, so Tom, I hear you, and I think that we are on the same page. I don't think anyone from the select board wants to put you in a position, or anyone on the board in a position, or on the committee in a position where you're not able to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. So I would say, yeah, I would appreciate, yes. Okay.
I just say, yeah, I agree with Tom. I mean, I really, if they've thought through those 3 goals, I thought they were good 3 goals, though your comment about maybe the water being a more longer term, but I think I'd much prefer a shorter list that you feel comfortable that you can get to this year than trying to add too much onto your plate. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that thought.
So what I would like to propose to the board then are maybe that the coordination creation of the needs survey, and then the creating the business forum meeting for the purpose of bringing together Stow business owners to get real-time feedback on issues they may face or topics of concern. If we could vote those through as their 2 goals, I would appreciate that. If that's something that we can be in agreement on. I want them to come out of this meeting feeling like there's something to be able to do.
Can I ask another question then? And I'm okay with the 2 goals you proposed. I do
Yep.
just maybe want to ask Tom whether he agrees that some of the planning board goals, which are more specific, would be part of the discussions perhaps of needs and of the issues that business owners are facing, like getting more involved in understanding the changes in the business cycle and how Stow is being used in relationship to the business communities immediately adjacent to us. Is that something that might come up in those conversations?
I think there's some opportunity in those ideas. I think that, you know, to make them reasonably achievable, they've got to probably be refined some in terms of what sort of deliverable is going to come out of that and what it's going to look at. You know, when we talk, you know, some of these are, you know, also fairly long-term kind of research type activities, you know, and digging into what other towns, you know, with comparable business climates, that's not a small task.
Right. Courtney, you have your hand up. Oh, there you go.
I think perhaps I was getting at the same thing. I was just wondering if the members of the EDIC had anything else on the list of the planning board goals that you would want to choose in order to have a 3rd goal, because you talked about are giving you three attainable goals for a year. I know with our work on the select board that some goals are carryovers. I mean, we might just say, okay, we're going to start on it, and even though it's a long-term goal, it's just something that we know we're going to carry over. But just curious if there's anything else that stands out from this, or a subset of any of the planning board ideas that could be adopted so that you could have the 3 that you asked for. Thanks.
Well, I guess one of the ones that that people seem to coming back to is this business guide. I've heard that over some time. I think again, for me and following a process, that would be, basically being in the town building and trying to chase down these different avenues. From where I sit and what I do, that's, taking time away from my employer. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's, or that it's not needed, because again, there have been some folks who have asked for it. But it's, again, I think it's something that's going to take a bit of time to pull together.
Right. Well, and I
yeah.
do think a lot of that is going to, I do think having a forum and being able to have a place where you can have the business owners together is going to give you all a lot of information about where you can kind of go with that thing. And I think allowing that to be the goal for now, or one of the goals for now, is going to allow for some of these other goals to kind of organically,
Rise up or gel.
right?
Sure.
Okay, so if the rest of the board is okay with that, I'm going to go ahead and propose that we vote on those two, and we call them shorter term goals. Courtney, are you listening for motion purposes? And then the longer term goal will be that advocate and educate on the results of the water study. Okay. So with that, Courtney, I'm gonna take a motion unless anyone from the EDIC has anything else they want to say. No? All right, well then I will take that motion, Ms. Fresha.
Okay, I move to set the following list of goals for the Economic Development and Industrial Commission. Number 1, coordination, creation, and evaluation of a needs survey. And number 2, to create a Stow Business Forum meeting for the purpose of bringing together Stow business owners to get real-time feedback on issues they may face or topics of concern. And that's it.
Second.
All right, any further? Seeing none, all in favor, Ms. Fresha?
Aye.
Ms. Sturgis?
Aye.
Ms. Hageman Clark?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, so that is unanimous. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
guys for
you,
waiting so
EDIC.
long to in this meeting and otherwise to meet with us. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on in a second. All right, so we met with the EDIC, the select board. We need to pick a magic representative. Literally don't ever.
I'll just say I was the magic representative the last time around for when I was on the board. It's a great organization, unlike the larger MAPC. Magic is more focused on our area, and it actually is great to meet with other people in the other towns on different topics. I'd say at this point, Denise is like, we're sending her out in the world and she's representing us in a lot of things, but it is an opportunity to get to represent. Just a little distracting, isn't it? Anyway, so that's just my 2 cents on the value of magic.
Well, I'll just,
I was monitoring the windows here.
okay,
Sorry, I was just moving people.
Yeah.
Unreal.
okay, yeah. So I'll just say, I asked that this be put on the agenda because I had volunteered to be a representative, and it's always on Tuesday mornings that they have their meetings, and I teach on Tuesdays, so that means I can go to no meetings. The types of topics is good. I think they're very broad. The one that, for example, this one is that they have a green team and they look at projects that are eligible for congressional earmarks, and they give us guidance. And then they have working sessions, for example, on values-based institutional food procurement. They had DEI information. They have webinars and they have these meetings. So it's very broad, and it is, magic is a subsection of the MAPC, which Ellen just described. So I would have loved to be involved, but I can just never go. So that's why I asked that someone else possibly go. I believe most of these, I just want to look real quick, are on Zoom. Let's see. Yes. Yes, so you don't have to tease, so you don't have to go anywhere. But so anyway, that's the request.
Okay. So Courtney,
Yeah, I'm actually willing to give this a try.
I love it. Then if you are willing to do it, then I'm going to ask Ellen to make the motion so that you're not moving yourself.
Okay.
I had the motions in front of me. Can I just wing it? I moved, or should I write it?
No,
I did
can
download
just
it.
You can wing it, it's fine.
Here, I have it here. So I move to appoint Courtney Fresha as the select board representative to the Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, otherwise known as MAGIC.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Thank you, Ms. Fresha. All in favor, Ms. Sturgis,
Aye.
Ms. Hageman Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Fresha,
Hi.
and chair votes aye. So that's unanimous. Thank you again.
Awesome.
And
All right. I told Courtney that she does not. Oh.
Ingeborg wanted to say something.
Courtney,
Yeah.
I'll tell you unless Denise has to do that, and I'll forward you some emails.
Great. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. I did promise Courtney that she does not need to read this entire list of property that we are dispositioning. No, that we are, what is that word?
Declaring
Excuse me,
surplus.
Declaring as surplus. Did anyone have any questions about this multi-page list? Denise, did you want to speak to it at all?
No, I mean, I think it's self-explanatory. There are two items in the highway department. Both have some very minor scrap metal value, which they will attempt to get. The facilities list, the majority of those are the old phones from the old phone system that we have replaced. And then everything that we do this exercise like once a year, and they clean out all the storage that this has been backing up in. So there's old monitors, keyboards, and majority of them are the phones. So they have no value to us. Most of them don't work or are obsolete at this point.
Excellent. All right, then I will take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to declare as surplus the goods and equipment on the list provided by the acting highway superintendent valued at less than $10,000 and belonging to the town, and to authorize the disposal of these surplus items. And I move to declare as surplus the goods and equipment on the list provided by the building commissioner valued at less than $10,000 and belonging to the town, and to authorize the disposal of these surplus items.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Ms. Sturgis,
Aye.
Ms. Hageman Clark, Ms. Fresha,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, so that is unanimous. All right, thank you. Well, all right, let's go to meeting minutes. Any questions? Any comments?
Great, as always,
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
especially to get through the public hearing with all that stuff, and she got it, you still can read it.
Yeah, I know, I do appreciate that. All right, well, if there's no more comments, then I will take a motion.
I move to accept the meeting minutes of the February 28th, 2023 meeting as written.
I can never, I messed up my mute, unmute, aye.
Or second.
Just say second, just second.
Getting almost to the end there, Ingeborg.
It's all right, it's all right, we're almost there. We're almost there. All right, all in favor, Ms. Sturgis,
Aye.
Ms. Fresha,
Aye.
Ms. Hageman Clark.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that is unanimous. We did have a lot of correspondence. Did anyone have any questions? Oh, sorry, Courtney?
I have a comment. Thinking again about the materials that Ms. Hildebrandt sent along and her concerns over the zoning of her property. It occurred to me that I feel as though I'd like to, on a future agenda, probably 6 months or so before we renew licenses, to have a conversation about in the Stow House of Pizza not being responsive to enforcement requests around permitting for them. So I feel as though part of Ms. Hildebrandt's complaint is because of her sense of encroachment from the business next door. And at least I feel as though we need to have conversations about enforcement, and, our permitting is one of the ways to at least, bring to the attention of an applicant for like a vitrular's license that there are other areas of concern that we'd like to have conversations about.
Okay.
I would agree with that. I mean, she's clearly being very diligent in her correspondence to the town, and I think it's appropriate that we look at it more carefully. So I will endorse Courtney's suggestion.
Okay. Anything else? I did want to say thank you to the members of the public who had written in about the anti-hate statements. It's always, I think, important to hear from residents about that. I would also, we're sitting right now, there are 4 women here, which is great, and would not have been a select board of maybe 20 years ago. I do want to encourage people, since we are in a position where people can pull papers to be on this board, that they do so. I think there's a couple of different options. Certainly, I always want to encourage people to be able to feel like they can contact the select board and make those comments and know that they're being heard, but also just to remind people that they also can have a seat at the table due to our lovely democratic process. So that is all I wanted to say about that. Anyone else?
Before you,
Yeah.
just add. So our next meeting is the 28th. If you'll recall, we talked about the planning board is holding their public hearing that night for the citizens petition. So Megan talked, and we're going to try and make an hour-long select board meeting and put as much business as we can. And then the second part of our meeting, which will be posted, will be to participate in or at least attend the planning board public hearing. And then we could allow time on our agenda if our board wanted to come back and talk about the public hearing or whatnot. So right now, that is how the 28th agenda will go, just to give everyone a heads up.
Yes. So we'll be in our regular meeting space, and then sort of like Ellen, what we did with the finance or the school finance meeting is just, we'll all be in the room with the owl and stuff. And then, and just so we can all listen to it together, but also felt like it was important to have discussion time sort of allowed in. So A, we don't violate open meeting law at the end of it. And B, just to kind of give us the opportunity to have a conversation if we wanted to at the end.
That's great.
Okay. All
Thank you for
right.
that.
And thanks everybody for your patience this evening as I navigated whatever that nonsense was. And
Someone wanted to Zoom bomb us, that's for sure.
I
Yeah.
know, I was like, we're getting Zoom bombed. This is
They were
great.
trying.
Like, this is what I get for
I know,
making the meeting virtual.
It's only the first time it's happened to us, so, you know.
It actually is. So really
Capital
don't.
Planning had it a couple times. They had to cancel their meetings and repost because it just got out of control. So, you know, that was pretty easy.
I just
Yeah.
was really glad it was all above the waist and, you know.
I was getting very I
grateful.
was getting very nervous.
I was-
I'm gonna
me too.
lie. That's why I was texting Denise, like, I don't really know what we do since we're on Stow TV. This is going to become a police matter. Okay, so having said that, I will happily take a motion to adjourn from this snowy March 14th.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second, I'm jumping in.
All right, all in favor, Ms. Sturgis,
Aye.
Ms. Hegeman Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Fresha,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you all for joining us and have a good evening.
Be careful
unanimous.
shoveling. Don't hurt yourselves.
Yes.
Yes. Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Good night.
Night.